Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Ben Beshear with LiveWell Capital, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT, CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I'm excited. We have the pleasure of speaking with Kon Leong, CEO of ZL Technologies. Kon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
You know, as you mentioned earlier, I think before we even started, technology evolves so fast that there's never a moment in time where you can define when we're done, right? But when are we at the point when we're catching Snowden before he leaves the building? Is that 5 years away? Is that 10 years away? Where are we? Where are we on that trajectory?
Actually, that is possible in the current time frame.
Why is it not happening in most circumstances?
Because there is a certain time frame for the market to absorb what's possible and then to take the requisite technologies and implement them. We are in that process right now.
Yeah.
So it takes time to prove it out.
So switching gears to metadata, what's the current value and emerging use cases of metadata? Big question.
I would actually try to define and elaborate on the term metadata, because to apply one broad brush may actually confuse the issue. In my mind, metadata has a tremendous role to play going forward for various reasons. You can vastly reduce the storage cost, vastly reduce the administrative overhead, and on top of that, especially in unstructured data, radically reduce the exposure to legal and compliance rules. Why? Hey, you can't subpoena me for it because it's just metadata. I don't have the document.
Right.
It's just tokens. You know, what are you talking about? It's like, okay, you want the document or you want the text, and I point you to the back of the book and I say, here, all of this glossary, what are you going to do with that? Nothing.
Right.
So the metadata is very, very good for all kinds of cost reduction and exposure reduction. But then I would also layer on an understanding of what metadata means, because metadata can be very, very light and metadata can be very, very heavy. And whether it's light, medium, or heavy depends on what you want to extract. What's your target function? If you want just a light category of files, just throw in a few metadata items and you say, yeah, okay, this is a legal document, this is whatever. That's very light. And then you have the medium to heavy, where you're extracting so much metadata that you effectively can get to insights without the original document, but you have enough metadata to get all the insights. And that has huge ramifications on performance of analytics. Why? Because imagine how fast your analytics is if you don't have to go back to the original document. It would be 1,000 times faster. So all of these are radical improvements and radical changes, but it takes time to assimilate and just taste what it means.
And why is enterprise metadata management often overlooked?
I think because they kind of conflate and confuse between light and heavy metadata management.
Okay.
Because light metadata management is very useful, very light, very low cost, but the use is also somewhat limited. Okay, this document is legal. That's all I got from it. Okay, that's not very useful to me. I want to know the contents. I want to know what something more about it. So then you add the metadata layers, and I think you can get to a pretty heavy version of metadata while still getting a lot of the benefits of cost reduction. For example,
absolutely,
if you have 100 bytes of information and you use just metadata to capture a heavy version, you can reduce it to 10. So you have a savings of 90%, but pretty much retaining most of its usefulness and insights.
Absolutely. And as you think about the specific tools and solutions to harness and gain some of these insights, what are you seeing out there? What can organizations use?
I think it comes as a bit of a shock when they actually see what's possible. I think it affects every department across the enterprise, every rank from the rank and file to the board of directors, and it affects every line on the income statement from the top line to the bottom line. I mentioned to you some of the issues like with regard to talent management, with regard to the Great Resignation, with regard to ESG, for example. ESG is, of course, very heavily scrutinized by the board of directors because they care about social and governance and so forth. And one example, I'll just pick one example, the exclusion factor. You know, are we socially inclusive as a culture? Well, remember what I said about the top performers and the communication network? You have all of those big, nice Christmas lights that saying these guys are in the center of the action. Well, flip the same chart around, upside down, and you've got all the guys on the periphery that are isolated. You titrate that against age and gender and sexual preference, and you've got your exclusion readings. It's a whole lot more accurate than any surveys you conduct because that is based on fact. Right.
You have a significantly more fact-based way to be ESG compliant or implement ESG versus thinking you are, right? Yeah. And what can organizations expect from enterprise metadata management in 5 years, 10 years? Where's the future here?
I think the future will converge on several levels. There'll be a convergence of metadata and original document or original content convergence. So you can have both, have your cake and eat it too. Then you'll converge among different aspects of unstructured management, such as governance for e-discovery, records management, privacy, and what have you. And then you'll have the convergence with analytics and governance, which is actually happening today, but not quick enough, in my opinion. And then you'll have this universe of unstructured merged with the structured universe. That will take a bit longer, somewhere between the next 5 to 10 years. And then you have the whole thing.
So that evolution happens over the next 5 to 10 years, but gradually.
Yeah, I would actually give you one image as to the destination where everything converges. You know, sometimes Hollywood is more than just entertainment. They have some pretty creative thinkers. And I'll lead you to one image that is from a fairly old movie, Minority Report.
Yeah.
We're getting closer and closer to that.
Pre-crime?
Yeah, pre something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the function will be that, but you'll have all of the information in a given organization at your fingertips to manipulate as you feel.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. It's you're right. I think it's Hollywood can sometimes have creatives that are predicting what's going to happen. So one thing I didn't want to forget to ask about is, you alluded to it earlier, but tell us about Manage in Place, one of your new solutions.
The Manage in Place actually was driven by suggestions from big enterprise users. They said, you know, we love all of the stuff that we do to meet SEC requirements or healthcare regulations and so forth. We love that, but then we kind of restrict all of the benefits to just the regulated users or the litigation at hand. It's not that the rest of the organization doesn't need it. They'd love to have it, but it's too darn expensive. It's too cumbersome to provide oversight. And there's also the exposure of more copies running around. That would all be solved if you could do all of this, deliver the benefits of the archive without the archive. And hence Manage in Place was born.
And what's been the response of your clients to it? Have they loved it?
They not only love it, but by some coincidence, not coincidence, it was happening already. Their long-range plans on managing data actually already imply or assume that In Place will be there. So some of them are prescient enough to guess ahead.
That's amazing. And so as we wrap up today, and we think about today's conversation, which has been fantastic, I'll end with, as you look at the future for yourself and ZL Technologies, what are you most excited about as you look at the future?
I am most excited about realizing and proving that old axiom, data is it. It's all about the data. Well, we actually did do that for the structured universe. In many ways, it's much more mature. But if you don't mind an image that I have in my head, it's like the moon shaped as an egg. And we're looking at the narrow end being lit, and that's the structured side. But the vast majority of the egg is in the dark. And we intend to throw light on the dark side of that egg. That's
a great metaphor. I love it. Well, Kon, this has been a fun conversation today. So thank you to Kon Leong for joining me today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. This was a lot of fun today. Thank you, Kon.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.